The insult cut sharper than a blade. "Don't touch me, you useless little girl." The words fell like a hammer inside the gilded ballroom of the Mandarin Grand Hotel, where crystal chandeliers scattered light across silverware and silk gowns. It was the annual Atlantic Venture Forum, where CEOs, senators, and investors whispered deals worth billions while sipping vintage champagne. But now, the entire room froze. Every head turned, every phone tilted discreetly into recording mode. Leonard Pierce, 40-year-old founder of Pierce Global Systems, didn't flinch. He dabbed at the burgundy stain spreading across his custom-tailored suit jacket, annoyed more by the ruined Italian fabric than by the ripple of silence he'd created. Maya Torres, the young woman he had dismissed, remained perfectly still. A folded napkin was in her hand, a bottle of still water balanced in the other. She did not apologize. She did not tremble. She did not retreat. What Leonard Pierce could not have known, what no one in that room realized, was that Maya wasn't just any catering attendant. She was the adopted daughter of Victor Langston, the 73-year-old venture titan who, at that very moment, sat at the head table evaluating whether to sink $4 billion into Leonard's company. Victor Langston was the kind of man who could make or break empires with a phone call. His silence was legendary, his patience feared. And he happened to be the one man Leonard needed most. Leonard had just insulted the most important person in the room, on camera, with a deal teetering on a knife's edge. But Maya didn't reveal her hand, not yet, because queens don't shout in chaos. They wait. At 25, Maya Torres had already lived a life many twice her age would call unbearable. Her childhood was carved by loss. Her mother died of heart disease when Maya was 16, leaving her to raise her younger brother Diego, a boy with brittle bone syndrome. Her father had been gone long before that, another shadow in a long line of disappointments. Maya was brilliant, fierce, and fast. She once dreamed of Olympic tracks, her legs carrying her across finish lines like fire. Scholarships lined up, coaches called, but illness and hospital bills piled higher than trophies. She dropped everything for Diego, 3 jobs, double shifts, sleepless nights. She didn't post quotes about struggle. She didn't ask for pity. She did the work quietly. People underestimated her constantly. They saw a brown-skinned waitress balancing trays and assumed invisible. But invisibility, Maya learned, could be a kind of weapon. Her position at the Mandarin Grand wasn't about desperation. It was strategy. She wanted to watch powerful people up close. How they moved, how they lied, how they revealed themselves when they thought no one important was listening. And tonight, Leonard Pierce had revealed himself. Leonard thrived on intimidation. At 40, he was the face of disruption in tech, a man whose AI platforms had reshaped logistics and earned him billions. He called himself a visionary. His employees called him the Butcher. In boardrooms, he weaponized silence, firing people not for failure but for hesitation. To Leonard, hesitation was weakness. Weakness was betrayal. Fear was his favorite currency. Now, in the Mandarin's shimmering ballroom, Leonard was on the brink of the largest deal of his life, convincing Victor Langston to acquire Pierce Global Systems for $4 billion. Victor was calm, unreadable. Leonard, meanwhile, basked in attention, certain that nothing could derail him. He never bothered to look at the staff. To him, they were scenery, pawns, background noise, until tonight. The ballroom glowed with opulence, white linens over oak, tables, champagne towers glittering, a jazz trio floating silk into the air. The Langston table was the room's axis, senators, hedge fund titans, media barons all orbiting Victor Langston. Maya approached table 1 with precision, carrying a bottle of Chateau Lafite Rothschild. She had practiced this countless times. Her hand never shook, but the glass tipped. Bordeaux spilled like blood across Leonard's sleeve. Her reflex was immediate. "I'm so sorry, sir." She reached with a napkin. Leonard's jaw tightened. He didn't see an accident, he saw an insult. "Don't touch me, you useless little girl." The words weren't loud. They didn't need to be. They sliced through conversations, cut the music mid-note. Forks froze mid-air. Maya held still, napkin in hand, her almond eyes calm. She had heard worse in whispers before, but never so loud. Never with so many witnesses. Leonard didn't apologize. He flicked his cuff, disgusted. One of his junior executives chuckled nervously. The silence stretched. Everyone waited. Maya finally stepped back, her voice steady. Please enjoy your meal. No anger, no apology, only control. Across the table, Victor Langston set his silverware down. His eyes, sharp, glacial, shifted to Leonard Pierce. He said nothing, but the air grew heavy. Leonard, oblivious, resumed his pitch with a too loud laugh. But the damage was done. The moment had been seen, captured, immortalized. Maya walked away. But queens don't walk away forever. They return, and when they do, they rise. The Mandarin Grand's ballroom hummed again, but only on the surface. Conversations resumed in fragments, a nervous attempt to mask the unease hanging in the air. Glasses clinked, laughter came too loud, too forced. But beneath it all, the insult still echoed like thunder after lightning. Victor Langston remained still at the head of the table, his posture erect, his fork untouched. To those who knew him, his silence was worse than shouting. Victor was a man who had weathered decades of boardroom wars and political storms without ever raising his voice. He didn't need to. When Victor Langston looked at you, you either felt seen or undone. Tonight, Leonard Pierce was about to learn the difference. Victor Langston had been born in Hamburg in 1949, a child of rubble and recovery. His mother, a widow, raised him with steel in her spine and wisdom in her tongue. When someone shows you who they are, she used to say, watch carefully. They will tell you their truth when they think no one is listening. Victor carried that lesson across oceans, building Langston Capital, the most influential private equity firm of its time. He made fortunes, yes, but more importantly, he measured men. He watched how they treated the overlooked, the powerless, the invisible. It wasn't numbers that determined his decisions, it was a character, and tonight Leonard Pierce had shown him exactly who he was. Maya Torres continued her rounds with flawless grace, though her pulse raced beneath her calm exterior. She had dealt with prejudice before, subtle, sharp-edged words delivered with a smile. She had built armor from it, but tonight was different. Tonight, the entire room had witnessed it. Phones had captured it, and her father had seen it. Victor had insisted she didn't need to work as catering staff. She could have joined Langston, Capital directly with her degrees and sharp intellect, but Maya had refused. I want to see people in their rawest form, she had told him. I want to know how power behaves when it thinks no one is watching. And now she had her Aunt Sue's dinner service rolled forward. Plates of seared duck and truffle risotto arrived with fanfare. Servers moved like dancers, restoring a sense of routine. Leonard leaned into his performance, his voice booming louder than usual, as if volume could erase the words he had unleashed. Let's talk numbers, Mr. Langston, Leonard said, flashing his shark's grin. $4 billion, complete acquisition. We can integrate in 2 quarters. Triple your ROI in under 2 years. Victor remained silent, lifting his glass of still water with deliberate calm. Maya approached again, this time with the refill pitcher. Her movements were smooth, but the air between her and Leonard crackled with memory. She reached his end of the table, tilting the pitcher. Suddenly his hand shot out, clamping around her wrist. The room tensed. You wait until I finish speaking, Leonard hissed under his breath, his grip firm. When men are talking business, you stand still. You don't interrupt. Not hard. Enough to bruise, but hard enough to remind her he believed she was beneath him. Maya's almond eyes met his. Calm, controlled, unbroken. Yes, sir, she said evenly. I understand completely. And with that, she slid her wrist free without struggle. She stepped back, unshaken, and moved on. But in that tiny act of quiet defiance, the entire table shifted. The investors saw it. The aides saw it. And most importantly, Victor Langston saw Victor placed his cutlery down once more, the gesture deliberate. He leaned toward his assistant and whispered in German, "Es ist Zeit. It is time." The assistant rose, phone already in hand, slipping through the side door with purpose. Leonard barreled ahead, oblivious, talking fast, gesturing wide, trying to fill the silence with the thunder of his confidence. But thunder fades when a storm like Victor Langston Victor stood slowly, like a mountain shifting. The room hushed instantly. Conversations stilled, forks froze, the jazz trio trailed off mid-bar. Even the servers along the wall stopped moving. Victor turned, his eyes falling first on Maya. She looked back at him, steady, calm, unreadable. Then he nodded, a small gesture of acknowledgement and permission. Turning to Leonard, Victor's voice came low, almost gentle. "Mr. Pierce, before we discuss numbers, I would like to introduce you to someone." Leonard blinked, confused. "Of course," he said quickly, plastering on a grin. "One of your vice presidents?" Victor didn't answer. He raised one hand, gesturing toward the back of the room. Maya stepped forward, no tray in hand, no apron tied at her waist, just quiet strength in every step. She stopped beside Victor, not behind him. Beside him. "This," Victor said, resting a hand lightly on her shoulder, "is Maya Torres, my daughter." The air cracked. Gasps fluttered across the tables. Phones tilted higher. "She was adopted at 7, Victor continued. "She chose to keep her birth name, but make no mistake. She is my daughter. And she has been here tonight by choice to see firsthand how those who hold power treat those they believe are powerless." Leonard's grin faltered. His face drained. Of color. Victor's voice didn't rise, it didn't need to. "And tonight we all saw the truth." The silence was suffocating. Guests shifted in their seats, their eyes darting between Leonard and Victor, between Maya and their glowing phones. The deal was dead. Everyone knew it, but Victor wasn't finished. "The young woman you called useless," Victor said evenly, "is wiser and stronger than most executives I have ever met. She is not invisible. She is my heir." Leonard's lips parted, but no words came. His executives looked down, faces pale, and then the ripple began. A chair scraped back, then another. Guests stood, one after the other, signaling their silent verdict. Phones buzzed as notifications flashed, headlines, clips, trending hashtags. By dessert, though no one touched it, the story had already reached the outside world. Langston walks away from Pierce deal after public incident. Billionaire CEO Leonard Pierce caught on camera in racist outburst. By midnight, Pierce global stock had fallen 19%. By 2 a.m., 26%. Board members flooded Leonard's phone with calls he couldn't answer. Investors fled. Contracts collapsed. By dawn, Leonard Pierce was not a titan. He was a cautionary tale. The sun had barely touched the Los Angeles skyline when the fallout was complete. By 6 a.m., Pierce Global Systems had lost nearly a third of its market value. By 7:15, 3 of its largest partners had issued official statements condemning Leonard Pierce's behavior. By 9 2 senior executives had resigned, and at 10:42 a.m., the board of directors voted to suspend Leonard indefinitely. His keycard access revoked before he even left his penthouse apartment. The empire he had built through fear and arrogance collapsed in less than 12 hours, not because of poor numbers, not because of weak strategy, but because of one truth, revealed in public: character matters, and the character had failed him. While Leonard's name filled headlines, Maya Torres walked through the glass doors of Langston Capital for the first time as something more than an observer. She wasn't wearing a catering uniform anymore. She wore a tailored navy blazer, soft-shouldered but firm, with flats that meant movement, not burden. Her almond eyes carried no bitterness, only clarity. Waiting for her in the executive wing was a sleek new nameplate, Maya Torres, Director of Human Capital Integrity. The title wasn't symbolic. It wasn't a PR patch to calm angry investors. It was real authority, designed by Victor Langston himself to reshape how corporations measured leadership, not just by profit, but by principle. She sat at her new desk for the first time, breathing steady. For years she had worked in silence, grinding for her brother Diego's care, pushing through jobs most people never noticed. Now silence was behind her. Her voice would be heard. Later that afternoon, a company-wide broadcast connected Langston Capital's offices from San Francisco to Singapore. Employees logged in by the thousands, many of them having only seen Maya's face in viral clips from the night before. She stepped to the podium. Her hands didn't shake. Her voice was calm. "Yesterday," she began, "I was called useless. Not because I failed, not because I made a mistake, but because someone believed their title made them more human than me." The room, both physical and virtual, was silent. "I didn't respond in that moment," she continued. "But today I will, because there is a difference between power and leadership. Power is taken. Leadership is earned." Maya paused, letting the words settle. Her eyes scanned the crowd. "I did not take this seat. I was trusted with it. And I intend to honor that trust, not just for myself, but for every voice that has ever been ignored, dismissed, or silenced in rooms like last night's." Applause rose, not polite applause, but genuine, raw. Breaking the stillness, Maya leaned forward slightly, her voice firm but warm. "We forget sometimes that the real test of character isn't how we treat those who can advance our careers. It's how we treat those we think have nothing to offer us. A server, a driver, a receptionist, a janitor. Those moments reveal who we are more than any resume ever could." She didn't shout. She didn't accuse. She simply spoke the truth. Everyone knew, but too few admitted. "And here's the thing," she said. "Someone is always watching. Sometimes it's a child at the next table. Sometimes it's a colleague you underestimate. And sometimes it's the very person who holds your future in their hands. Would you be proud of how you treated them?" Her dull words echoed through the live stream. Employees nodded. Some wiped tears. Maya didn't smile in triumph. She didn't need to. This wasn't revenge. This was a reclamation. From the front row, Victor Langston watched his daughter with quiet satisfaction. He had built an empire on discipline and foresight, but in Maya he saw something greater: resilience, grace, a strength that didn't need to shout to be heard. When she finished, he rose to his feet and applauded, the first to stand, the last to sit. Around him the room thundered with applause. In that moment it was clear to everyone. Maya Torres wasn't just Victor's daughter. She was his successor. News outlets ran the story in waves. Langston heir emerges after viral incident. From waitress to director, Maya Torres's rise. Character over profits. A new era in corporate leadership. Clips of Maya's speech spread across social media. Workers from every sector, teachers, nurses, drivers, janitors, shared her words with captions like, "This is what we've been waiting for," and, "Finally, someone gets it." Investors who once whispered only about returns now whispered about values. Competitors scrambled to issue statements about corporate dignity initiatives. But Maya didn't care about imitation. She cared about authenticity. For her, it wasn't about headlines. It was about Diego, her brother whose therapy bills had forced her to sacrifice everything. It was about her mother, who taught her quiet strength before leaving too soon. It was about every person who had ever been treated as invisible. Meanwhile, Leonard Pierce sat in his penthouse, blinds drawn, his phone buzzing with calls he wouldn't answer. The man who once terrified boardrooms, now terrified no one. His name was plastered across screens not as visionary but as villain. His empire, built on arrogance, had rotted from the inside and collapsed in the light of day. In one night he had lost everything. Not because of a spilled glass of wine, not because of an accident, but because of a single choice: to see another human being as less, and that was the costliest mistake of his life. Weeks later, Maya walked into Langston Capital's New York office where her first official project was underway, creating a new standard of corporate evaluation, one that measured not only profitability, but also humanity. She smiled as she looked over the draft policy. It was ambitious, yes, but so was every meaningful change in history. Her phone buzzed. A message from Diego. "Proud of you, sis. Always knew you'd win." Maya's eyes softened. She closed her laptop, straightened her blazer, and stepped into the future. Not as a server, not as someone underestimated, but as someone undeniable. Because queens don't flinch. Queens don't retreat. They rise. What happened in that ballroom wasn't just about one CEO and one waitress. It was about us all. It was about the moments that test our humanity, the choice between dismissing someone or respecting them, the choice between arrogance and dignity. Leonard Pierce chose arrogance, and it cost him everything. Maya Torres chose dignity, and it gave her everything. The lesson is simple. Power fades, but character endures. And sometimes, the most powerful person in the room isn't the one at the head of the table. Sometimes, it's the one clearing it.